Take a listen to Interim Chief Ruben Delgado.
Ruben Delgado, the interim chief with Tampa Police. Just wanted to brief everybody this evening on the Stephanie Crone Overholt's case. As you all know, our detectives have been working nonstop for almost 2 weeks now on the investigation to her death. We're relieved tonight to announce that we've made an arrest for her murder. Lutz resident Robert Kessler, who's already in custody on an unrelated drug charge, is being charged with second-degree murder and the abuse of a dead body charge. Stephanie, who's originally from Pennsylvania, was staying with Kessler and Lutz when her family reported her missing. After seeing our pleas on the news and with the help of each and every one of y'all here tonight, our plea to help identify that tattoo, we were contacted by her family. Through some of our investigations, we were able to identify an address that was associated with Stephanie that belonged to Mr. Kessler. When we went out to speak to Mr. Kessler about the missing person report that Stephanie was filed upon in Pennsylvania, he told us that Stephanie was staying there for a while, but however had left a few weeks prior. However, through our investigations and some of the evidence that we were able to recover, it was quickly determined that what he was telling us was not factual. So with the help of, well, as you know, on the 14th is when we went and spoke with Mr. Kessler. On the 16th is when we located Stephanie's car with the help of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. And then through our investigative means, through some search warrants that we did, we were able to locate enough evidence. In fact, we located some of Stephanie's blood in her car. And we did a search warrant on Mr. Kessler's house where we found more blood and a pair of shoes. FDLE and the medical examiner's office worked with us very closely, and we were able to determine that the blood in all of those cases belonged to Stephanie. So that's when we ruled this a murder. So today, he's charged with second-degree murder and abuse of a dead body. This is still ongoing. We wanted to get this information out as quickly as possible. I probably won't be able to answer all of the questions that you all have tonight, but I just want to stress that we believe it's extremely important that we let the Tampa community know that the person responsible for this heinous crime is off the streets tonight. There's still a lot of work to do with the detectives. We're working very closely with several agencies. I want to thank a few just from what we did from starting on the 11th when we were in McKay Bay searching for Stephanie's body. So FDLE was a big part of this investigation, still is. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Pasco County Sheriff's Office came down to help. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission was also a big help with us, as well as the U.S. Coast Guard. And then again, the media and the public for getting our information out as quickly as possible and helping us identify Stephanie and helping us get to the bottom of this case. So I'll take any questions that you all have now. I may or may not be able to answer all of them, but I'll answer what I can.
What was the relationship between Kessler and Stephanie?
So according to Kessler, it was he met her somewhere at a fast food restaurant, and she had said she was living out of her car at the time, so he invited her to live with him.
Do you know how she died or how long ago she died?
I'm sorry?
Cause of death and time of death?
Yeah, we're still working with the ME's office. The full report's not complete to the ME's office. We're able to say it is a homicide, but the actual death we're not going to release at this time. So.
Can you explain how long her body was in the water?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how long her body or body parts were in the water?
Exact day, it's hard to say. We know we have some activity on the 5th and 6th by the water that we're still trying to piece together.
There was a witness that was there that said he saw somebody on the bridge throwing stuff into the water.
Right.
Is that?
It's part of our investigation. That's part of piecing together that timeline. Can't say with 100% certainty, but that is part of the case, yes.
Can you explain to us what's next in the investigation and if you're still asking the community for help in case you know the person?
Yeah, so the detectives they still have a lot of work to do. On the latent investigative side, we're always looking for more information. If somebody, now that this comes out, if they saw something or they saw them together, any information like that would be extremely helpful to the case. But we've met with the state attorney's office, we met with Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the medical examiner's office, and you know, we're confident in that we have the right guy off the street.
Can you explain to us that he is already arrested and is under charges? Can you explain to us about his criminal history?
Yeah, so he has a history. He's been in prison several times. And a lot of it is for drug activity. He is currently in jail now or in custody now for a drug charge.
Has he picked up on that in anticipation of these murder charges coming afterwards? Was this something that you guys?
It came out of our investigation. I wouldn't say it's anticipation of it, but it was something that we investigated and were able to put charges on him for.
Have you found all of her body parts?
We're still working through all that. I don't want to release all that information yet because some of that is still pending, but I think we've released a couple pieces that we've told you all about. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Based on the investigation, based on the search warrants that we conducted, there's several other investigative things that we did. So anytime you desecrate a human body or you do something to the human body, that's the charge that we did. Yes, sir. Good. All right. Thank you.
Breaking news on WFLA now. Here's JB Buno.
An arrest in the gruesome murder of Stephanie Crone Overholtz here in the Tampa Bay area. Police saying that it was a man that WFLA News Channel 8 spoke to. Jeff Patterson interviewing the man Robert Kessler, the man that Stephanie Crone Overholtz is said to have stayed with in Lutz in Pasco County before her body parts were discovered in McKay Bay. JB Buno here with you live on WFLA now. Interesting development here. First and foremost, that we have an arrest in the case. Yeah, we're gonna get Jeff Patterson on the phone, and I'll give you here. We'll give you a number here, Rick. I'm gonna give you a number to call in because I want to get Jeff Patterson's perspective. Jeff Patterson
spoke with this man on Monday.
Yeah, so let's get Jeff on the line here. Justin, why don't you go over here the very latest one we just found out?
Major update, Interim Police Chief Ruben Delgado announcing the arrest of Robert Lee Kessler. He is charged with second-degree murder and abuse of a body in the homicide investigation. The victim, Stephanie Crone Overholtz. Basically, he said they located blood evidence inside her car as well as inside his home in Lutz where she had been staying. He is now being held on a unrelated drug charge. But again, JB, we expected something major, whether it be a suspect identified, but the major breaking news tonight, we now know an arrest has been made in connection to the murder investigation that began with body parts being found here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and we might have a picture here of the suspect as well that I'm going to try to, here it is. I do have it. Robert Kessler, white male, birth date January 10th, 1952, in custody on drug charges that you heard there. Also, people asking for more details on how they found out it was Kessler, so they execute the search warrant. There's blood of Stephanie Crone Overholtz found in the vehicle, in her vehicle, and then blood, matching blood, her blood that was found also in the execution of the search warrant at his home in Lutz. I'm loading up this image into our system, everybody, and we're also going to hear from Jeff Patterson momentarily here as well. So let's see if we can get this loaded up onto our screen.
The other detail came out in that press conference, JB. We talked so much about that tattoo, how it was critical in this investigation. We learned from the interim chief that was her family saw the release of that photo and led them to help identify this victim.
All right, we got Jeff Patterson calling in. Let's get Jeff Patterson here on the line. Jeff, you're live on WFLA now. Jeff, hey, you spoke to, let's bring up, if we can, let's bring up Robert Kessler here on our screen. There is the mugshot. Jeff Patterson joining us on the phone on WFLA now. Jeff, you spoke to Robert Kessler. He denied to your face, did not want to be on camera, denied to your face that he had anything to do with Stephanie Crone Overholtz's death. You just found out the news just like we all did. What's your reaction?
Absolutely. I've been following along with you and Justin, kind of the lead up to Chief Delgado talking about what the arrest is. This is obviously one of the possibilities we've been considering. When I spoke to this man, he admitted to me that he had served several sentences in prison. He admitted to me that he had dealt, been sentenced for dealing cocaine in the past, that he had a number of other offenses. We've just done a real quick look into his past criminal history as soon as his name was released to us, and he does, in fact, have a long criminal past. But as you said, he denied killing her. He said he met her at this McDonald's, that they shared this common bond of having lived in Erie, Pennsylvania. But he said that, he was just trying to give her a place to stay. I will tell you this, though. The one thing that you could not see when I was interviewing, because, frankly, he was with a small child, and we were trying to be respectful because I wanted to find out everything I could about Stephanie Overhaul. And he said, well, don't put me on camera. He came out of his home wearing a towel over his head and got into his car. I finally talked to him enough that he agreed to talk to me as long as we didn't show his face. But as I was talking to him, the entire time I was interviewing him, keep in mind, it was a relatively temperate day. It wasn't hot by any stretch of the imagination. And he was starting to break out into a cold sweat. His entire forehead, the longer I talked to him, he was breaking into a sweat. I could tell that he wasn't telling me everything. But, he denied it, and we have to let police do their job. They're now saying he is the man who murdered her. So, here's this woman who had some, as Justin said that he did, I spoke to the manager of the Harley-Davidson dealership in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he said, nice person, but he told me that she had some issues. This man said that she had some other issues. He alluded to a lot of things, and claimed it was other people that she was hanging out with. He said, as you heard, that police had seized his van, but he maintained they would not find anything in that van. Obviously, they must have found something that tells them that he is, in fact, the killer. So, I'll be very interested as all of this progresses, what that evidence was. Did they find physical evidence in the van? Did they find physical evidence in the home? Obviously, a very, very gruesome crime. But, what led them to make this arrest? And so all of those details will eventually come out, and we'll be very interested to hear what all of that has to say. But I can just tell you my impression talking to him was that he was saying one thing, but you could tell there was something else going on. Otherwise, the man would not have been breaking out into a cold sweat at the time as I was talking.
Wow. Thank you, Jeff.
Justin, do you have a question for Jeff? Because
well, they did mention the blood evidence, Jeff, that there was some blood evidence located in her vehicle and inside the home. So we know that is at least part of the evidence they've gathered to charge him. But like you mentioned, there's still more details to learn. And Jeff, I'd heard the same thing out there Saturday, that he had a little girl who had lived with him. Were you able to find out what exactly that relationship is? No, she's not related to the victim in this case, but who is that little girl? Do we know?
So he referred to her as his daughter. I walked around, tried to talk to people in the neighborhood, and basically people had kind of shut me down there in the neighborhood, and they didn't want to say a lot. Nobody would say anything about him or, frankly, about her. But obviously we're going to go back and see if we can talk to other people about this as this progresses.
Jeff, was there anything, the interview, as it usually is, and better than just about anybody, interviews can't fit everything into broadcast television. You only have a finite amount of time. Was there anything that didn't make the final version that we saw on WFLA News Channel 8, anything else from the raw interview that you conducted that was, again, his face was not on camera? In fact, why don't we play back some snippets of that press conference, or it's not that press conference, of that interview after the press conference that we just had from Tampa Police. Let's play back some snippets of the interview that Jeff did with Robert Kessler, and then I'll continue my question here. Take a listen, folks.
She was from Erie, Pennsylvania, and I had worked for the city of Erie at one time 40 years ago. She didn't spend much time at the house. Like, she would be gone all night sometimes, but she always acted normal, and she was real good and meticulous about cleaning the house up for me. They got a search warrant, and they took my van, and they're not going to find, there's no evidence in it. There's evidence that she had been here probably or something like that, but that's it.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. She had a lot of different things where she had told me that some gang was after her.
So, Jeff, you have to take everything here with somewhat of a grain of salt, because he's telling you that he doesn't know what happened to Stephanie Crone Overholtz, when now we have, of course, him being charged with her murder. Again, blood being found, according to Tampa police, blood that was found in her vehicle, matching blood that was found at the home of Kessler there in Lutz. Back to my question. Actually, it's really two questions that I want to ask you. Did you get any sense as to how long the two lived together? Again, we have Stephanie Crone Overholtz, who meets him apparently at a McDonald's, comes to live with him. Do we have any idea how long she was there? He said meticulously cleaning his home, so there at least being enough of a comfort level where she's cleaning his home. And then also, too, was there anything else, Jeff, while we have you, is there anything else from the interview that didn't make the final version on WFLA that you can share with our audience here tonight?
So what he told me was that she lived there for about a week or more. He said he met her at this McDonald's on Fletcher. He could tell that she was living out of the back of her car. You know, they struck up a conversation because she had this Pennsylvania license plate, and so they started talking about that. And then he tells her that, you know, he used to work in Erie 40 years ago. Frankly, he did say a lot of things on camera that I don't think would be appropriate to go to here, because these are just the allegations that this man is making, and he's making disparaging remarks about her character and things that he claimed she was doing. And those are things that we don't have any knowledge of or independent confirmation of that she was doing, and that's why I didn't include it in the report. However, he told me personally, I guess he assumed that I would start looking up his criminal history because we already had his address, we knew where he lived, we could find out his name if we want to. And so he confessed to me that, as I said, he had served time in prison himself for dealing cocaine. He said he was arrested, and this frankly doesn't make any sense. He claims he was sentenced to prison once for shoplifting. You know, that's a jail term. That's not a prison sentence. So, you know, I know that he did serve time in prison, and one of the reasons I didn't hear the entire news conference with Ruben Delgado is that, you know, we were doing a little research about this man's criminal background, and he does, in fact, as I said, have a criminal history. He served time in a variety of institutions throughout his adult life. So there's more digging to be done. We'll have to find out more about him. And I don't know, frankly, exactly the date that they met at this McDonald's on Fletcher, but that we will try to explore that so that you know, we can find out more about him and how they began this relationship.
Jeff, in your conversation with Robert Kessler, as our commenters have been noting, I believe 69 years old. Anything in your conversation, was there any romantic link between the two? Did it go beyond a relationship that was just him taking her in because he thought that she was homeless?
He denied that. He said that there was no, you know, physical relationship between them, that he simply felt sorry for her. He kept saying over and over, I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home here, and so I guess he told her that to make her feel comfortable, because it appeared to me he did have a small child living with him, and so, you know, he kept telling her, I suppose, as he told me, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, place, you know, implying to me at least that, you know, that they were not living, you know, in the same room or are not sharing the same room, even during what appears to be her brief stay with him.
Here live on the right side of your screen are the two reporters who have been really covering this story. Of course, Jeff Patterson, who's calling in to WFLA Now, and Justin Checker. I'll bring up this comment from our Facebook Live audience here for both of you. You can both answer this question from Raquel here. #HJB, #HJeff, #Justin. Has anyone else come forward as far as knowing her while she was down here in Florida? Jeff, I'll start with you. Any Anyone else come to you other than Robert Kessler as far as knowing Stephanie Krohn Overholtz?
So, as I started to research her, as Justin and I probably found out about the same time, that she was, this was the suspected victim. It started showing up on social media. People began, speculating, and people in her friend group would post "rest in peace," and they were, expressing their sympathy well before police identified her as the victim of this horrific crime. So we started looking into it, and it appeared to me that she had left Erie, Pennsylvania, that she had worked at this Harley dealership, and then she went to Jacksonville, Florida, where she apparently worked as a barista in a coffee shop up in Jacksonville. And then, for unknown reasons, she left from there to come down to here. Now, I wasn't able to find anybody in Jacksonville who had known her. And I'm not sure of the timing, how long she was down here in Florida. I also spoke to Sean on the phone, expressed my sympathy to him for what he and his family are going through. But he didn't give me a lot of information about why his mom was here. He was just really dealing with the grief of losing his mother and didn't go into a lot of detail, even though we spoke for, 10, 15 minutes on the phone.
Justin, same question. Any other knowledge of Stephanie Krohn Overholtz, knowing anybody else while she was in Florida, at least in the Tampa Bay area, that you've uncovered in your reporting?
When I was in the neighborhood there in Lutz on Saturday, when Mr. Kessler was not home, other neighbors, when we showed the photo, recognized her right away. So they had seen her there over those past few days, having lived there. But like Jeff said, most of the contacts, people back in Pennsylvania, haven't been in touch with her son, the Harley dealership. So just to follow up what Jeff had said, other than the people in that neighborhood, unaware of anyone here in the Tampa area who knew this victim.
How about these questions that are coming in? And Jeff, we'll let you go on this because I know, again, calling in here on Thanksgiving Eve, but we'll just address some of the commenters that are joining us on WFLA now. A lot of questions about that little girl. Ada Minok, #AJB, who is the little girl? And then C. Marie getting a lot of likes on this comment, #AJB, where is the little girl that stayed with him? Jeff, do you want to hop in on this one first?
Sure. Well, first off, let me just say that, when I observed her, she seemed to be happy, healthy. She was not afraid of Mr. Kessler in any way. She referred to him as daddy.
How old would you say she is, Jeff? Rough age?
That's maybe 6 years old. That's sometimes tough to guess exactly, but based on the fact that I have two daughters, I'm thinking she was around 6. But she was, when we showed up, she was the one who called Kessler over to our, and said, "Daddy, there's somebody here to see you." And so he then came out, as I mentioned, he came out with a towel over his head because he didn't want us to show him on TV. And I talked to him for some time before, you just heard a good deal of my conversation with him. I talked to him for some time before he agreed to let us even do that. Because I told him I just want to find out about Stephanie Overholtz as a person. Because I've covered a lot of these incidents before, and sometimes it gets lost, especially in a gruesome case like this. Who's the victim? What was the victim like before this horrific thing happened to them? So I'm always cognizant of that when I'm talking to people. Don't lose sight of who the victim is. And so that was my conversation with him, and that's when he agreed to at least let me record his voice as I talked about it. And, I suppose he gave us some of the truth there, that he had met her at this McDonald's on Fletcher and could tell she was living out of her car. But we'll let the facts as presented by the Tampa Police Department, and certainly follow the course of Mr. Kessler's trial and find out where this goes.
Jeff Patterson. Before we let you go, Jeff, you've been covering this story. Anything else that you want to share before we let you get back to your Thanksgiving Eve, sir?
Yeah, I just, as everybody else does, when you see things like this, and I was there when, they recovered part of her remains. I was, these are just the things that stick with you as a reporter, and you see these things, and if you're human and have any empathy. And when I was talking to Sean on the phone, I felt bad for that young man. That he's having to go through this. It's a horrific way to lose any family member at any time, especially going into the holidays.
Jeff Patterson, appreciate you taking the time to call in to WFLA Now. We appreciate it. And, sir, from all of our commenters, just a big happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, Jeff.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much.
All right, back here live, everybody, on WFLA Now. Jeff Patterson, who, again, did that interview. Let's listen to it here again for those of you just joining us. Jeff interviewed Robert Kessler, this man who, again, has been charged in the murder of the woman you just saw, Stephanie Crone Overholt from Erie, Pennsylvania. 69-year-old Robert Kessler, who spoke to Jeff before his arrest. He was in custody on drug charges, and then, of course, speaking to Jeff Patterson. Here again is that clip.
She was from Erie, Pennsylvania, and I had worked for the city of Erie at one time 40 years ago. She didn't spend much time at the house. Like, she would be gone all night sometimes, but she always acted normal, and she was real good and meticulous about cleaning the house up for me. They got a search warrant, and they took my van, and they're not going to find, there's no evidence in there. There's evidence that she had been here probably or something like that, but that's it.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. She had a lot of different things where she had told me that some gang was after her.
And you got to take that for what it is. It's the person who was charged in Stephanie Crone Overholt's murder and speaking and denying any involvement whatsoever to Jeff. So any of the other things that you heard there, he mentioned that she meticulously cleaned his place. That's a curious thing, because if going down the rabbit hole for a moment, if you are cleaning up and the police are executing a search warrant, you're cleaning up your home, is that something that you are saying just to throw off, just to say that you were the one cleaning up, or excuse me, saying that she was the one cleaning up when in fact it was you cleaning up? There's a lot of things there that we just don't know whether or not it adds up as far as it being anywhere close to resembling the truth. I want to make something clear for our audience. Some of the commenters have noted that there might be some family members of Stephanie Crone Overholt's joining us in the social media comment section. This harkens back to what transpired during the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie coverage. As we do news on social media and news on live streaming, interactive live streaming as we do, is different than television, because television isn't a two-way street. It's the delivery of information. People are watching at home, and you can tweet, sure, but interactively here on live streams, we're talking back and forth with our audience. We are talking here with you by featuring your comments here on screen, and sometimes people that we are talking about on stream will be in the comment section, and of course they'll want to participate in any way that they can. So always being very, very respectful. Social media can be a place that is chock full of nastiness, chock full of inappropriate comments, rude comments. Let's all be respectful. Let's all be very respectful, to just be very, very mindful that it's very possible that people of family members of both suspect and victim are in the social media comment section on WFLA Now. All right, so now we're being told by Justin Checker that Justin Checker joining us here that Sean.
I just got off the phone with Sean Overholt, Stephanie's oldest son. We're working on get him to call in. He'll be sharing some thoughts here. Just the main thing, JB, is relief that this guy has been arrested. He did say that police notified him and the family before the press conference, which we suspected, and he should be calling in momentarily to share more of his reaction to now know that this man is behind bars charged in the death of his mom. So
and this is Sean Overholt.
So he did confirm to me that the other two names on the tattoo are his brothers. I did ask him that question. He also told me he believes it was his grandmother or one of grandmother's friends recognized the tattoo and led to the identification. So
wow.
We did hear from the chief that it was family members saw that tattoo, which led them to know this was the victim in this case. So we should be hearing from Sean Overholtz momentarily. Again, just feeling relief tonight. He'll express more of that when we hear from him any moment now, JB.
Yeah. So and again, Sean Overholtz, correct? Just making sure.
Sean Overholtz. Yeah.
So again, who you spoke to provided you with the statement originally.
Yep. And then he called our assignment desk here now, and I was able to speak with him briefly, and he basically called the comments that the suspect made to Jeff full of bleep, basically. So we'll hear from him more momentarily, just to try to set the.
And this is what we were just talking to, as far as how news is different online. News is different online interactively. WFLA Now, it's very much value what all of you have to say. I can shout out that in our YouTube comment section, we have Lee Braddock, we have Ann Cheever, we have Crazy Diamond, Virginia Scratcher, Scratcher Doodlebugs. Yeah, a lot of different names in YouTube. Facebook Live. I can shout out commenters. This is what we do on WFLA Now, from Brian Hansen to Hardy Cornelius to Adam Minock, just commenters who are joining us in real time. And one of the commenters that we have reached tonight is Sean Overholtz, the son of, right here in the center of your screen, Stephanie Crone Overholtz, who again is the homicide victim that we have been talking about here on WFLA Now, on WFLA News Channel 8, and I'll be very curious to hear his perspective on what this has been like. Losing your mother, I just can't, to such tragic circumstances like this, can't even imagine what that has been like, and I believe that
This should be the call. Yep.
this should be the call here, and let's see if we can bring in Sean Overholtz joining us here on the phone. Sean, first and foremost, can you hear us? You're on with JB and Justin at WFLA Now.
I can hear you.
Sean, first and foremost, just your reaction to this terrible news. Of course, you and your family have been dealing with such tremendous grief in light of what happened with your mother, Stephanie. I would imagine that you found out in advance of this press conference that an arrest has been made. I just would like to give you the floor. What was your reaction to an arrest being made? The arrest being made being Robert Kessler here of Lutz, Florida.
As soon as I had found out, which was not long before y'all, I knew this gentleman that, isn't the gentleman, but the guy that did this, Mr. Kessler, had been guilty based on the comments that he had said to y'all. I did not think anything he said was true, and that alone made me believe he was guilty. Any other questions?
We can hear it in your voice that this has been extremely difficult to deal with. Can you put into words who your mother was? We only have the one photo to go by. We only have the words of a man who knew her for a very brief period of time, a man who is now charged in her murder. So that means very little, if not nothing. Who was she to you is the question that I would like to ask. And can you give our people, our audience, people that have been watching and following this story and seeing your mother's picture and hearing your mother's name, who she was in life rather than who she is now as a homicide victim?
My mother, she was a loving person. She may not have made the best decisions in life, but she was my mother. She loved us very much, and I know that, and I bring comfort knowing that. She did not deserve what had happened to her in any way. Nobody, no matter what, deserves what happened to her. And after hearing the details, it's hard to believe. It's breathtaking that someone's capable of doing these things. Coming from my background and what my job consists of, I don't understand mentally how individuals are able to do the things they can do.
Sean, I'd like to ask you about the tattoo, which police told us helped them identify your mother. Do you know when she got that tattoo? And just imagine it must have meant a lot to her to have her son's names tattooed on her leg.
I can't give you an exact date, but I know she got that a long time ago. She loved all of us very much, and I know that. She cared about us, and it's hard to explain, and it's hard to imagine what she had went through leading up to the final moments from this individual.
How is your grandmother? You were telling me she's the one who saw this tattoo and helped identify her. Just how is the rest of the family holding up tonight?
My grandmother, her only daughter, and she's not doing the best. She's trying. She's hanging in there. I'm calling her pretty often just to make sure she's okay. But this is news. This isn't traditionally a way somebody goes out, obviously, and she's trying to deal with it, but she's doing the best she can, and I'm here with her every step of the way.
What would you want to say to the Tampa Police Department? This has been a top priority. They've been working nonstop now for 2 weeks. Just what would you want to say to the chief and investigators who've been able to make this arrest within 2 weeks of this terrible discovery.
I'm not going to name any names, but I have been in consistent communication with the individuals conducting the investigation, and they have been outstanding. I mean, they've kept me informed every step of the way. They have gone above and beyond. They have not slept to this point, and I'm sure it's a relief to them, but it's a relief to me and my family that before Thanksgiving we were able to figure out precisely who did this, and without question, who did this, and that they will spend hopefully the rest of their life beyond bars, which is by far more than they deserve, in my opinion.
I was going to ask you a little about that next. I'd like to point out, Sean, that because we're live, our broadcast is live on social media, you're getting just an incredible outpouring of support on Facebook Live. I don't know, Sean, could you share with how you found us? Was it on Facebook or was it on YouTube? Or
No, I found out from the police department.
Oh, from the police department that we were live with this broadcast?
I found out prior, just prior.
No, I'm sorry. That you knew to call. That you knew to call in. Were you watching?
I found out. Yes. I decided to call in only because I feel that the individual Kessler, who had done the heinous crime, he had made some fabricated lies up in order to support his, hopefully way of getting off of this, which clearly didn't work out. I wanted to call in and clear that up. My mom, the reason she moved to Florida, that is, I'm not going to disclose it at this moment, and that is because it's ongoing. And I think that, he's trying to help her save some money because she had recently got down in the area and was established. And he took advantage of that, and then, here we are now.
I would just like to point out that the point I was trying to make to you, Sean, is that we're currently live on Facebook and YouTube, where there's already been a ton of emojis and just countless amount of comments as far as an outpouring of support for both for you and your family. You first and foremost, just as far as just the bravery to have to call in just hours, not even, perhaps even less, after finding out about an arrest being made in your mother's murder. So I know I just speak for a lot of the commenters that are joining us on Facebook and are joining us on YouTube. There's just a tremendous outpouring of support and tons of heart emojis and prayer hand emojis that are going on right now. Sean, what was the last contact that you had with your mother? Was it a conversation you had in person? Was it a conversation that you had? You don't have to share if it's private details. You don't have to share. But when was the last time that you had heard from your mother before she died?
I don't want to go into strict details, but the last conversation I had with my mother was over the phone, and that's strictly because I am active duty Marine Corps and I'm consistently moving. My job is very strenuous at the moment, and that requires a lot of attention, and that's one of the reasons I haven't been in contact as much as I should have been.
Yeah,
but I'll leave it at that. Sean,
what is justice for your mom look like? What you were touching on it a little bit a moment ago, but I would just like to ask you, now that we have an arrest, and I'm sure we're going to find out more details as the legal process goes forward, but now that we have an arrest, what does, speaking for both you and your family, what is justice for your mother, Stephanie, look like to you?
There's a difference between justice and what I think, and justice is based on the law, and I think the law will do what they can to provide justice, but in my mind it's a lot different than what it should be. And he's getting off easy based on that.
Justin, any other final questions for Sean while he's calling in here to WFLA Now?
We just appreciate you joining us here live and wanting to set the record straight. Like I'd seen the interview Jeff had done, and if you heard Jeff earlier, said he could just tell by the facial expressions that he wasn't being fully truthful. So just to wrap up here, just how do you want your mom to be remembered?
As a loving, caring person, as any son would. She strived for the best. My mom had a traumatic brain injury at some point. That caused some issues on her end, but she's my mother. She was at the end of the day, she loved me, she loved my brothers, she loved everybody, and she would give the shirt off her back for anyone. So.
Sean, from us here, and really on behalf of our commenters, first and foremost, you being active duty Marine, thank you for your service. It wouldn't be right if we didn't state that tomorrow being Thanksgiving, one of the holidays that, of course, it's all about family. We know how difficult of a week this is for both you and your family. We very much appreciate you calling in and wanting to be part of sharing some details. So many times in the news do we talk about somebody who died and we focus so much about their death and not how much they lived during life. So you being able here, you being better than just about anybody to come in here and share some details about who your mom was. I think I just speak on behalf of everybody watching and all the folks in the comment section. We really appreciate you calling in, and thank you for doing so, and all the best to you.
And I appreciate it. I just wanted to clear up what that monster had fabricated.
Sean, any other final thoughts before we let you go and let you get on with your Thanksgiving Eve?
No, I just appreciate the police department very much. They worked very hard to get where we're at now, and I appreciate the family and friends that went above and all the support we've gotten. Thank you.
Sean Overholtz calling into WFLA now to join myself and Justin Checker. Hey, Sean, all the best to you. All the best. Happy holiday wishes to you and your family, and thanks so much for calling in.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sean Overholtz. Everyone, this is the holidays are extraordinarily difficult when it comes to this type of news story, because while there is a silver lining for this family going into Thanksgiving tomorrow, that they know that there is an arrest been made, that they are on the road to justice. There's still an empty seat at that Thanksgiving dinner table. And we talk about these stories and we cover these stories. And you can't do so without having a heart, Justin, because you know that while, yeah, we're closer to justice, there's still just a family suffering from such tremendous grief. And that being Sean's family, and Sean calling in just speaks to who he is as a human being, wanting people to know, wanting to set the record straight, not wanting the words of Robert Kessler to be what we're left with, wanting his words to be what we're left with as far as who Stephanie was, and just being able to hear his voice. It's extremely sobering as far as the jobs that we do and covering the stories that we do.
And the quote that jumps out: "She did not deserve what happened to her." I think that quote sums up, the feelings that this woman did not deserve this. He also expressed gratitude toward Tampa police to having made this arrest so quickly before the Thanksgiving holiday. Again, I asked him the question about that tattoo, which proved to be really a critical piece in this investigation that led to, I believe, the grandmother or his.
There it is on your screen.
And those being Sean, who he spoke with, and the two other brothers, and just this mother of three now tragically taking this heinous crime. And tonight on Thanksgiving Eve, the man she'd been staying with in Lutz at the home on your screen there, he sits in the Hillsborough County Jail, charged with second-degree murder and abuse of this woman's body.
You can hear it in Sean's voice that whatever justice is served in this case isn't enough for the person responsible. That person, according to police, is Robert Kessler, here on your screen, charged in the murder of Stephanie Crone Overholtz, who you've been seeing repeatedly on your screen. Sean's mother, who we just spoke with, 69 years of age.
Had a criminal history, as our colleague Jeff Patterson spoke about.
Previously arrested on drug charges. So again, and it's interesting here. He has. I'm looking here at some of the details that are down here underneath his name. I'm looking here. So he is currently. He had an offense of petty theft. There was a charge list. There's an entire list, and people that go through and comb through arrest records online are going to find Robert Kessler's arrest record very, very quickly. It is Kessler with two S's. People were asking that in the comment section as well. But there are charges going back here to, and again, I'm not looking at convictions, I'm looking at charges. Charges of cocaine possession dating back to 1989. In this list, prior prison history, 1989 cocaine possession, more cocaine possession, 1999, possession of a forged stolen license, cocaine sale or purchase back in 1993. We're talking about, wow, is there a second? No, there isn't a second page, but it's a lot Okay, so, and I'm just going to use Control F, cocaine, on his arrest record here on the Florida State Department website. It comes up 20 times. So clearly an extended drug history, at least with charges being filed, of cocaine-related charges being filed against Robert Kessler here on your screen, and various sentences. Again, the 69-year-old out of Pasco County, the northern side of the Tampa Bay area. Any final thoughts here, Justin, before we wrap up here on WFLA Now? Of course, more coverage on WFLA.com, the WFLA app.
I think just to wrap up, we knew this was going to be a major announcement, whether they'd announce a suspect or an arrest, but we now know tonight that this man from Lutz, Robert Lee Kessler, is sitting behind bars, charged with this heinous crime, this second-degree murder of this mother from Pennsylvania. The body parts, it'll be 2 weeks to the day tomorrow when they first found them. So really quick work by the investigators over at Tampa PD to try to piece this together, identify the victim. That tattoo was such a critical part of this investigation. And now, as her son said, that she did not deserve this, but the family is grateful. On this Thanksgiving Eve, the man that police say is responsible sits in jail.
We're looking here one last time. We're going to leave you here, everybody, with this photo on your screen, and we'll throw it back up here one more time. This is Stephanie Crone Overholtz. You saw Robert Kessler enough. Some of the commenters here pointing out, please leave us with an image of Stephanie, and we are going to do so. Stephanie Crone Overholtz, who has died of a terrible act here in the Tampa Bay area, a terrible act of murder. But now we have a suspect who is behind bars, that suspect being Robert Kessler. Sean Overholtz speaking to who his mom was in life. It was very, again, sobering to hear a little bit more from him. For people who are curious as to where this now goes from here, of course, the reason that the press conference was done tonight, you can't really call a press conference for a story like this on Thanksgiving Day when families are coming together. So this provides now clarity, Justin, as to why the press conference was called at 7:30 on a Wednesday night, the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. And for people that want more on where this now goes as far as justice for Stephanie, we'll have it for you. Jeff Patterson, Justin Checker, our entire WFLA team is going to be covering this story, and we'll have the latest for you on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, as well as on air, your NBC station here in the Tampa Bay area, WFLA News Channel 8 on your side. Our staff here will be following up on this story. So you want to keep it, for those of you joining us outside the Tampa Bay area, you want to keep it on WFLA.com. If you're joining us in the Tampa Bay area, you want to do so by following our newscasts on WFLA News Channel 8. Wrapping up here, everybody, on WFLA Now, big thank you to both, of course, Sean for calling in, Justin Checker for joining us here, everybody, on WFLA Now. And the full presser and the interview with Sean Overholtz, have just been told, is now on our website. So if you missed it, you can go back and watch it. You can also scroll back in this video if you want to see more. So thank you to Sean. Thanks to Justin here, and as well as Jeff Patterson for calling in on his Thanksgiving Eve. To everybody, you can comment along here with us. I'll be hopping over on Twitter, checking out what some of you have to say as far as the story. But again, this is all about Stephanie Crone Overholtz, and now the justice cause that is going to come out of this now that we have an arrest in this case. We'll be following up on legally where this goes from here. And again, WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and our on-air newscast for the very latest. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody, on WFLA Now.